Hey everybody, welcome back. These are some rich people being delulu as hell.
I'm rich, black, and handsome.
I got the private jet.
Then everybody in the back row were just peasants.
Have you ever had one of those days where you're in the mood for caviar, but you feel like, oh my gosh, I should be on a private jet eating caviar, but I don't want to leave my home? So I got the solution for that. I got the private jet experience here in my living room, so I can enjoy my caviar first class.
Oh!
Exclusively here in the comfort of my own home. And I'm going to give a little caviar experience. You get a little pancake.
Pancake.
A little creme fraiche.
Ooh.
You can get this in the dairy department at your gourmet restaurants. And, of course, a little caviar.
That's a big scoop. That's going to be
Top it
fishy.
off with a little onion.
Onion.
And, of course, a little champagne to go with it.
Gotta have champagne.
Take a bite. Really gotta try this.
I mean, the thing is, if you have the money to do that, like, why wouldn't you, you know?
Why not?
If you get a private jet built into your house, you get the photos, and you get kind of the experience. Why the heck not? No, Jackie, because we are all poor. This is how out of touch I want to be. Imagine your main problem in life being, I want to be on a private jet, but I'm not. Maybe we should just build one into the house.
Not giving.
Just a little seating area that looks like a private jet. She's even got a window. Look at that. There's clouds and everything. I'm definitely in the mood to be able to afford basic groceries. Don't know about caviar. Listen, it depends on what kind of caviar, because you can get some pretty cheap caviar. I'm just saying. I actually like the cheap caviar. $6 a tin. You know, the lumpfish caviar? Listen, I'm sure there's plenty of things you'd rather spend $6 on, but as someone who really likes caviar, I will eat it with a spoon. No cracker or pancake needed. Just me and my cheap caviar.
Okay, so this is part 2 of my experiences working as a nanny for a super wealthy family. As I mentioned in part 1, they took me with them on their private jet to a luxury villa in Turks and Caicos and somehow managed to make that one of the most miserable experiences ever.
Oh.
One of the things this family was super particular about was their food and where it came from. At their home in Toronto, they had a private chef who cooked for them 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, which is fine. If you're that wealthy, you can do what you want. But the problem was, at this villa, it came with a huge staff, including a private chef who is supposed to cook luxurious meals for you while you lounge in the infinity pool. And instead of doing that, this family made the private chef's life a living hell. They started by bringing with them to Turks and Caicos like 5 hockey bags full of their own food because they didn't trust what was going to be there. And then they micromanaged each meal that he made so closely, like exactly how he should cook it, exactly what should be in it, what it should taste like.
Oh.
And when the meals weren't exactly how they wanted them to be, they would flip out.
Ugh.
For the record, a meal at this private villa, I found out later, cost $100 per person per meal. So this family had 5 kids, which meant that they were paying $700 US per meal just to be fed. And here they were not even letting the private chef do what he is supposed to do. Me and the other nanny that came with them on vacation became pretty good friends with the people who worked at the villa because, I don't know, we were all the help, I guess. And
Jesus.
we saw how stressed they were about losing their jobs because the parents were sending these nasty emails to the owner. And the butler who had worked at the villa for the last 10 years said that of all the A-list celebrities that have stayed in this villa, this family was by far the worst. And in a moment of beautiful irony,
They got sick.
book that the mom,
Let me guess.
who spent maybe half an hour with her kids each day and was staying at a villa that cost about $20,000 a night, The book she was reading on vacation was a book on Amish parenting and how we should all be more like the Amish. So yeah, and honestly, it wasn't just the parents. The kids were just as awful, which I can tell you more about if you want. I have so many stories, and maybe one day I'll be able to go back to that villa, not with that family, who knows?
Okay, listen, I understand we all want to eat the rich, but not all rich people are like this. Like, I can confidently say that being rich does not make you an If you're you'll be an asshole whether you have money or not. These people just sound like if you're gonna be this much of a pain in clearly money's not an issue for you, why is it that you didn't just bring the chef that you like instead of your 5 hockey bags of food and that attitude? Why didn't they just fly the chef out? It's such an easy solution. Well, because they like people tiptoeing around on eggshells around them, okay? They enjoy it. Oh God, there's more. Oh no.
I actually lived with this family for a few months while I was working with them. They had a country/summer home outside of the city, and so I would live with them from Monday to Friday and then drive a couple hours home on Friday night back to the city, and then early Monday morning I would drive back to their country home. Not only did this mean that I had to pay Toronto rent prices for a place that I was only staying in barely 2 nights a week, but I also had to live with this family. The mother had made it very clear that she didn't want the housekeepers or nannies hanging out in the main part of the house where the family hung out, so we would stay in bedrooms in the basement. And the problem was that we didn't have a kitchen down there. We only had a fridge and a microwave, and she didn't want us to use the kitchen on the main floor. So I either had to spend my whole Sunday meal prepping meals that I could reheat throughout the week, or I would buy these microwavable meals, which I know are not good for you, but I really didn't have a lot of options.
I love that they have this like private chef and they spend so much money on themselves. And then they treat their help like this.
Silence, you annoying peasant.
So a lot of the time I would just buy these microwavable meals and then microwave them and eat them for dinner in the basement. And the one day, I guess the mom came down and started looking through our fridge, and she found these microwavable meals and had the audacity to lecture me about how bad these meals are for me, how I shouldn't eat them, how they're so bad for my health, etc., etc.
If you don't want her to eat those meals, then why are you only providing a microwave for her to eat with? For her to cook her food with, while you wine and dine with your private chef? The audacity. What does she expect you to do? Like, I don't understand.
Living with this family also meant that there were no boundaries whatsoever. Even if I finished working at 7 p.m. at night, the kids could come running into my room wanting me to read them a bedtime story, and I would be expected to do that. And you're probably thinking, if this was so bad, why didn't I just quit? Because it definitely wasn't the money that I was sticking around for. I was getting paid barely over minimum wage.
That's crazy to me.
And it was because the family kept dangling these vacations and trips in front of me. And I think the mom could tell when I was kind of at my wit's end, because she would start being like, oh, we're talking about doing a vacation to the south of France. We're staying in this villa. She'd show me all these pictures. And I'd be like, okay, well, I guess I can stick around to go to the south of France with you guys. But spoiler alert, these trips never happened. And even the Turks and Caicos trip that I mentioned in a previous video actually happened after I had quit already. They had called me and said that they needed a nanny for this trip, so I went along with them. And eventually I decided a trip to France wasn't worth this.
It's not.
And I just quit.
It's not, bestie. Like, come on, you're making minimum wage. Go get a job that pays you a little better and take yourself to the south of France. It's not worth it. It's literally not worth it. With people that have an attitude like that, yes, they're rich. Yes, they might, like give you some scraps every now and again. But realistically, if they're that difficult, do you want to be spending time with them in the south of France? They will ruin the south of France for you. Ugh. Is it me or all these wealthy people really stingy and entitled? I've met some wealthy people that are super, super, super generous. Like, I can confidently say they are very generous people. But like the minimum wage thing, girl, there's so many jobs that you'd be happy at doing minimum wage work. I'm not even wealthy, but our nanny eats with us every weeknight. Honestly, like the fact that they're like separating you guys, like it's like Downton Abbey, you know what I mean? And even then, like Downton Abbey, there's still moments where you can tell that they love their staff so much and they mingle with the staff and they have friendships with the staff. They don't treat them as like beneath, you know what I mean? They're part of the family. Ugh, I hate that. The basement could easily be made to have a kitchen for the people helping out. Honestly, like you guys have all this money to be going on private jets and like spending $700 per meal on a private chef in Turks and Caicos, and you don't have enough, like put a hot plate down there? For sakes, like give me a break. You thought I was done. I am not.
A lot of the things that this family did, especially the mother, weren't necessarily awful, but they were more just entertaining. As you can probably guess, the wife was absolutely gorgeous and the husband looked like a toad. He had a particularly large nose, which will be relevant to the story later.
Oh.
But I got the sense that the mother felt like she needed to justify to me why she was with such an uggo.
Oh, we know why you're with an uggo,
one day
bestie.
I was cleaning up dinner and she comes into the kitchen and basically just launches into this story about how she met, I'll call him Mr. Smith. She told me that when she was younger, she was a model and she really only ever dated other models. And she had a real fascination with really pretty small noses. All the guys she would date had small noses. And so when she met Mr. Smith, she was not attracted to him at all. But she decided to go on a few dates with him anyway. And this is a point that she really drove home to me. She did not care about his money. And she really didn't like when he would pick her up for dates in his Ferrari or his fancy sports cars. She didn't care about any of that. But one day something happened and she wound up in the hospital and Mr. Smith was the only one who came to her side immediately. And that was when she realized what a kind heart he had, and that's why she married him, not for the money. Honestly, I probably would have respected her more if she just said that she married him for the money, let's be real. She also loved to try to force this like mother-daughter bond between us. And
go to the basement, daughter.
Asking me about my dating life and my life and that kind of stuff, which I obviously gave her like no information about. But the one day after I had finished working, she asked me to sit down with her to have a glass of wine. And she basically started talking about how her one regret from when she was younger is that she wished that she had slept with more people.
Oh!
And she basically told me that if she could give me one piece of advice, it would be to go out there and sleep with as many people as possible before you're married and stuck with one person forever.
I mean, most of us are excited to be with one person forever. Like, we shouldn't be marrying people that we're not excited to marry and we're not like okay with being stuck with forever. But you didn't marry him for the money, did you, honey? Hey, no shade, no shade. I see how it is. But let's not pretend. Let's not play pretend.
So my aunt in Shanghai was the VP of one of like the biggest banks in China, and the majority of her life she spent with like very powerful people, some of which she has nurtured to become like real estate tycoons, et cetera, et cetera. So we're like all in a 7-seater SUV, me, my boyfriend, my mom, my cousin, and out of just like elderly respect, we give her the front, like the shotgun. She looks at us and she's like, "Are you out of your mind?" The disrespect. I'm confused. My boyfriend doesn't know what the is going on because she's like speaking to us in Mandarin. So now we all get out of the car like to like.
Does she want to sit in the back?
According
I don't
to her,
get it.
this is the presidential seat. Like this is the best seat, and yes, that's her sitting there now. And coming in dead last in rank is the driver, because why? Manual labor. Then coming up in rank apparently is the passenger, the shotgun, because he's supposed to be like supervising the driver, like a little bit higher in rank because he's not doing manual labor, but still like second to last. Then everybody in the back row, like the last row, we're just peasants. We're with the cargo, put it in the back. the thing. I get so car sick. Like both me and my cousin, we get very queasy in the car. So my mom knows that I get car sick. So she was like, hey, I'll just like let you sit in my seat, like the one next to her. And I was like, don't you dare, because I'm not gonna sit in this car for 2 hours listening to her lecture me about how disrespectful I am for taking your seat, putting you in the back. So yeah, I wonder what's worse. Like me and my cousin just like both throwing up for 30 minutes straight, like behind her, or have me and my cousin sit in her seat or her right-hand woman's seat and never live down the disrespect for the rest of my life. No, thank you.
I'm sorry, does she think she's like the Queen of England or something? Like, how dare you refer to me as anything but your highness? No, your rank. It is either your highness or your grace. Like the fact that she's going around and like ranking people based on like where they should sit. Like,
I'm better than you, so I have to sit in the best seat in the car. You're not as cool. You're lame. You're like sort of okay, so you can sit in like the passenger seat. And you're a piece of shit, so you can sit in the way back and you can be in the trunk.
oh God, and the help. The help can drive the car. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like, be freaking for real right now. I hate this so much.
So I moved to Los Angeles from a small town in Iowa, and I made friends with a girl whose family was extremely wealthy. Her parents literally had an elevator in their house. And while I was busy eating air for dinner, she proceeds to call her mom on the phone and complain that her $2,000 a month allowance hadn't come through yet. All the while her parents were already paying for her luxe apartment and luxe vehicle that she was only using until she could move in to her $1 million condo that they had purchased her and were renovating. She then proceeds to scream at her mother that she needed the money because her vibrator broke and her mental health was suffering. And all the while that she's screaming at her incredibly kind mother, who had cancer, by the way, I'm sitting there wondering if I have enough quarters to scrap together to get a spicy potato soft taco at Taco Bell.
Honestly, there are a few things I enjoy more than watching a spoiled rich person have a tantrum over something that's so out of touch. Doesn't sound like you guys are gonna be good friends for long.
I saw a video of a gal talking about why people act poor when they actually have money, and I feel like this comes up in my life so often in so many odd ways. As someone who had a trust fund in college because I inherited assets from someone who is no longer alive on this planet, I never really understood acting like that wasn't the case for me. I was very comfortable in college. I didn't have to work in college, and some of my friends did not have that same privilege. Their parents were either supporting them or they were paying for college by themselves. And so obviously when your friends are all together and you all want to do something, if somebody can't participate, I had the privilege to be like, you're going to participate if you wish to, because I can support that and I want you to be there, so I'm going to pay for it.
I hope we can be friends.
And the complete opposite also existed, where people's parents were supporting them, or they did have trust funds as well, and would go down to the penny of Venmo requesting you for the 17 cents rather than either rounding down or rounding up, or I got the bill this time, you get the bill next time. And it makes me think, I feel like I bring up this friend all the time, but it's just such an interesting case study where I had a friend who also had a trust fund who had significantly more money than I, and that didn't come from the unaliving of her own parent, and she never told anybody that she had this trust fund. It was all a secret. Her sister also had it, and so all these people had this perception of her that she's just such a hard worker. She works for everything that she has, and she would get her friends to pay for her airline flights with their points. She'd be like, oh, I really want to come see you, but I just don't have the money. How about you just use your points for my flight? And the friends would do it. And then come to find out, she has a trust fund. I don't know who she told. It's her right to tell whoever she wants to tell. But I don't understand the acting poor. And the reason that she didn't want to tell anyone is because she was worried that they would take advantage of her.
Which she's doing?
Her being taken advantage of, she was lying to people to take advantage of them. And it makes me think, where I was having a conversation with an older woman about this said person, and she was saying things along the lines of oh, she just works so hard, she works multiple jobs, she does X, Y, and Z. And I would say, you do know that she has a trust fund, right? She's damn near a millionaire. And she was like, what? I've never known that. And it's yeah, that was a strategic play on her part for you not to know that.
Okay, when you started this story, I was like, listen, I can understand someone wanting to not have money be a part of the conversation. You gotta know your audience, you know what I mean? It's not part of polite conversation to talk about how much money you have. But that is completely different from pretending to be poor and then making your friends pay for That is so. No wonder she's rich. She just gets everybody to pay for her. She doesn't spend her own money. That makes so much sense. Like, you know, I was thinking of like when you see like Mark Zuckerberg, right? Like Mark Zuckerberg like doesn't dress very well. He's worn the same t-shirt for like 10 years. You think of like all of these like really, really wealthy people and they all look like, right? So they're trying to just like make themselves seem homely and humble. I mean, in the meantime, they have all of this money, right? But that is completely different from pretending to be poor so that other people pay for you. That is highway robbery.
So I worked at a flight school, and this guy came in and he said, you know, I want to be a pilot, da-da-da, give me the full spiel. And I was like, okay, this is how much it costs, da-da-da-da. And as he was talking to me, he got a phone call, and he's like, oh, okay, I'm going to take this. Comes back, and I was like, he's like, you know, sorry about that, it was my lawyer. And I was like, oh, no problem. Having like legal troubles or something? You know, trying to be courteous. And he said, oh no, I had some money stolen out of my account, so, you know, we're trying to get it fixed. And I was like, oh, that sucks. How bad was the fraud? He said, $260,000. And I was like, oh my God, how and when did they steal this from you? And he's like, well, we're still working out the details, but it happened about 9 months ago, and I noticed this week. I was like, how did you go almost 9 months without noticing this? And he's like, well, would you notice if $20 went missing out of your bank account?
That's not the same thing, sir. He doesn't seem too concerned about it.
Oh, it was just $20. Why are we getting the lawyers involved if it's just the equivalent of $20 for you? Who cares? They need it more than you.
He just called you poor in a million ways and was sleek with it. The saddest part about this is most of us would notice those $20 missing. It's a good practice to have. Don't get to the point where you're so delulu that you don't know what's going on in your bank account or on your credit card. That kind of adds up.
I'm richer than your daddy. And I'm black. And I'm handsome. And I'm handsome. You see what's going on? I'm rich, black, and handsome.
You wish you were rich.
I'm rich, black, and handsome.
I think he's rich, black, and handsome.
Stop touching me. Stop touching me. It's freedom of speech. No. I can stand here and speak my piece. I don't give a bro, what you talking about? What's the problem? What did I do? What did I do? Disorderly conduct. Get out of here. I'm standing here like everybody else. This girl, no, you know why? No, listen to me. No, listen to me. Listen to me, bro. This woman right here came up to me and pushed me out of nowhere. Why?
After he slapped her friend.
Right here and slapped the woman for no reason. Get out of here, man. Right now. That's the problem we have with y'all.
Keyword no reason.
You want to say I put my hands on the woman. You walked up to me and pushed me for no reason. Why? Why did you put your hands on me? Why did you put your hands on me? Why did you put your hands on me? You mad because I'm black and I'm fresh and handsome and I got more money than your dad. I got land, I got animals, I got all that.
Animals? Oh, you want to know how to lose an argument? Automatically, you say, I have more money than your dad. I could buy a private jet. You will automatically look really stupid. Like, I'm just saying, negative 3,000 points in this game of rich people being delulu. Subscribe!